What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to the channel. It is that time of year where you need to start planning for your college football 26 dynasty. Whether you need to figure out what team you want to rebuild first in your offline dynasty or what team you want to pick first in your multi-user online dynasty. In today's video, I'm going to give you a full breakdown and power rank every single team that is in college football 26 and help you get a head start and advantage in deciding which team is going to be first. Now, last season when we were power ranking teams, a lot of it was based off of vibes. Maybe school backstory, school prestige, school success, and or lack thereof recently, uniform combinations. You know, it worked. A lot of you guys took something of value from last year's video. However, this season we're going to be able to take it to another level. And it's going to make it for a little bit longer video, but I think you guys are going to appreciate the in-depthness. Because through the power of teamcrafters.net, they were able to scrape the code and get the pre-release as of June 21st roster ratings for college football 26. Now, as someone that has as much experience as anybody playing football betas, these ratings look absolutely non-existent to the ratings that we usually get in betas, which are 100% scrambled. I played the college football 26 beta. They did not have any player like this is. All the ratings were scrambled as well. They look nothing like this. And if you go through this, there's a couple ratings on a couple teams that might look a little weird. I'm going to say that these are work in progress roster ratings. There might be some fine tuning ahead of full launch, but I'd probably hit this with like a 85 to 90% confidence score that these are mostly going to be the ratings at launch. And we're going to use that to help decipher which teams truly are S tier to maybe truly are A tier. Maybe there needs to be a tiebreaker. Maybe a team has a underrated sophomore quarterback. Maybe a team has a height, weight, speed, 6'4", 97 speed wide receiver that's a sophomore that you're going to have maybe 3 years of. That's really going to prioritize that school as a sleeper dynasty for you guys to use in either offline or online. So we're going to go and break down most of the schools utilizing their roster and highlighting which teams have underrated sleeper players that you need to prioritize or at least consider. Let's rip the Band-Aid off right away and just get to the bottom tier teams. Teams I don't think for any way, shape, or form you need to consider for a rebuild. I mean, if you're in a competitive online dynasty, that's probably the only reason why these teams would be rated at all. Texas, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. These are all going to be the strongest rosters in the game. These are all teams that have recent success. These are all perennial playoff contenders. These are all teams that have the best rosters, best underclassmen, best true freshmen. You're going to likely have the best dev traits. You're likely going to have the best facilities and best starting coaches. You're going to be able to, now with the realistic coaches in college football 26, I'm just going to put them in the Y pile. Why would you want to consider these teams for a rebuild? Now, if you're in an online franchise and you're competitive, it's a money league, absolutely, these teams are going to be powerhouses, and I don't know how you're going to decide, maybe draw straws for who's going to get the overpowered rosters. But these, from a rebuild standpoint, which at the core, that's what this list is going to be for, why? If you're a fan of those teams, there's your why. Now, I did say at the top of the video, I'm going to break down some of these rosters and show you some players that could decide what makes an A-tier team to an S-tier team. We're not quite there yet. I don't think we need the full-on team breakdowns for this next year because much like the Y, these are the best teams in the game. These are teams that have absolutely stacked rosters, have the best athletes, the best underclassmen. You're not going to have to really worry about recruiting. These would actually be strong teams if you're actually kind of not comfortable with recruiting. If you think recruiting's a little bit tedious or you think there's too much in it and you're not particularly a good recruiter, I think these schools could be a little bit more interesting for you because you're going to have the young players already on the roster. It could give you a couple years to gather your bearings and figure out the recruiting system. So we're going to start Alabama. For the first time in maybe 20 years, Alabama's not in the bottom tier because the first year post Nick Saban did not go well. So from that standpoint, from a backstory standpoint, I think a lot of these teams kind of follow the similar backstory where if you really just want to maybe be the missing piece, you know, be that coach, GM, or whatever, take control of these teams and find a way to get them over the hump, that makes them an interesting school to take on for a rebuild. You got Arizona State, who has a very good roster, college football playoff caliber team. You have Clemson, who has a very, very good roster. They've tied for the highest rated quarterback in the game in K. Klubnik, so not a lot of work needs to be done there. You have the Florida Gators, who have one of the most overpowered quarterbacks in the game. Sophomore DJ Lagway, 240 pounds, almost 90 speed, 98 throw power. They have some of the fastest skill position players in the game. Florida is very overpowered, but it's been a while since they've been good. So for sure, I guess, sure, they're a fun rebuild. LSU, same thing, very talented roster, but hasn't been able to kind of put it all together and win lately. Same with Miami. Same with Michigan. Post-Harbaugh era has not been super forgiving. They got the cover athlete, the only freshman on the cover, Bryce Underwood, who's another very overpowered quarterback that you could consider. Ole Miss has a stacked roster, but hasn't been able to find a way to win. Oklahoma's on the come-up, just got John Mateer, a 91 overall rated quarterback transfer from Washington State, but still, it's a very, very good roster. SMU, I decided to throw them in here, not just because they made the playoffs last year, but they are overwhelmingly the best team in their conference for the foreseeable future. Like, you could just take up SMU, sim 3 seasons in a row, and I bet you every single year, with the new and improved sim, there's a little bit of a problem in 26, where you would just drop games to, like, you know, FCS teams, left, right, and center. I think SMU is going to be kind of at the top of that conference. Not a lot needs to be done there to rebuild that program. South Carolina is probably the funnest roster in the game, right? I'll use the site now just to showcase just how overpowered South Carolina is. Like, they're pound for pound, they might have the cheesiest roster, and because they just haven't had a lot of IRL success, could be fun to take over for a dynasty in college football 26. Dillard Stewart's one of the most overpowered players in the game. Sophomore edge rusher, so you're hopefully going to maybe get 2 years out of him. Same with Lenore Sellers, if you can get a good role there. These just, you know, look at it. Look at the height, weight, speed. Look at the athleticism. They are going to be ridiculously overpowered. Jalen Kilgore at DB is very, very good. You throw in the fact that they got just speed upon speed upon speed on the roster. Bennett, 92 speed. Clark, 93 speed. Freshman at 6'2". You have Jared Brown with 94 speed. And then you throw in the fact you got Mick Harbor, 6'5", 235 with 99 speed, 97 acceleration. Just, they're going to be game-breaking, I think. And the same goes, we got Tennessee, Texas A&M, USC, and Utah. These are all rosters that have the best rosters in the game, the best freshmen in the game, the best underclassmen in the game, the fastest players consistently throughout their roster in the game. But I can relate because I'm a Florida Gators fan. They're not going to go in the bottom tier because there's still that level of interest where can you bring that program to that next level? These are all teams that are just not quite there. They haven't had that success in the college football playoff, and or like Alabama and Michigan, there's, maybe you probably even throw LSU into that, there's this huge shift of like, is this new era going to be able to figure out and get it done? And you can be a part of that if you choose them to rebuild in your dynasty. But for the most part, these teams here are all very overpowered, and unless you're just like me, Florida Gator fan of these given teams, I probably wouldn't suggest starting with them out the gate in your dynasty in college football 26. Now we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes of this video. We have from Air Force all the way down to Wyoming. I'm going to go through every single one of these rosters quickly. Again, I don't want this video to be 5 hours long. I want this to be easily digestible for you guys, but I also want to quickly break down maybe some of the pros and cons of the pre-release ratings of these rosters that could decide what separates these teams from a solid rebuild to an elite dynasty choice. So without further ado, up first, Air Force. Starting with Air Force, and again, I'm just going to say this once, so I don't have to say it for every single team. These are pre-release ratings, work-in-progress ratings, but I think, again, confident enough to say that there's not going to be drastic enough changes that, you know, grading Air Force and every single team from here on out by these ratings, they're going to be drastic enough that my opinion would change, and or your opinion would change come full launch of the game. Looking at Air Force, pretty damn good roster. Kind of surprised they have an 88 D tackle, to be honest with you. But I will say the one thing that stands out here is that almost all of them, minus Owen Allen at fullback, they're going to be seniors. So this is a team that is very, very top-heavy with their best players being seniors. So you're going to have that year 2 jump is going to be quite drastic and challenging for your dynasty. You're going to have to recruit well. I mean, breaking down this roster, they have a couple nice players, 80-plus overall on the defensive side of the ball. They're that classic run. They got the fullback, 87, couple running backs in the 80s as well, with 3 very limited passing quarterbacks. So unless you wanted to go to Air Force and completely change that program around to maybe a more traditional school, I mean, it's kind of as typical as it gets for a military school. I'm going to put Air Force into solid. Moving on to Akron. This is a pretty cupcake roster, so if you want to embrace that challenge, especially in the hotbed that is Ohio, I think Akron's always a near top-tier choice. Don't really have a lot of great athletes on the roster. Looking through the quarterbacks, you got 74 Ben Finley, but he's a senior. Outside of that, I will say maybe Braden Rogow looks interesting, the 6'4 freshman who has 90 throw power, which is, You know, that's always a very nice threshold to have. So Akron, jerseys are nothing special, rosters nothing special, no real underrated gems or anything like that, which I think all that just factors in to put them into the fun tier. Because I think ultimately if you're choosing Akron, your plan is year 10 plus of that dynasty. You want to chase to become the new big dog in the state of Ohio. You want to get up there first, see if you can catch Cincinnati. And then you start getting with the big dogs. And ultimately the end goal, if you do an Akron dynasty, is clearly you want to surpass Ohio State. And that chase is what makes Akron very fun. Now we're going to take a look at App State. I've always liked App State. Always thought the backstory, their lore, upsetting Michigan way back when, has always been elite. They've always had pretty nice jerseys. The environment, atmosphere is very good. Their roster is, you know, solid. I wouldn't say it's fair to say cupcake, but it's closer to cupcake than it is not. They got some nice athletes in the secondary. A couple fast guys. The running back here, Roberts, so you can just, you know, pound the rock if you want to. But I think the underrated thing here with App State is their quarterback. Now, looking at the quarterback room for App State, you have A.J. Swan, who is the starter right now, the junior, who's, I mean, not bad, solid athlete, 91 throw power is not too shabby, but the thing that made me interested in App State is the other quarterback, the sophomore J.J. Cole, 6'7", 250, 95 throw power, one of the best arms in the entirety of the game, and his accuracies aren't brutal. 82 short, 78 mid, 79 deep. You can get a good offensive line so he can stand there in the pocket and operate, because obviously you're not going to get a lot of dual threat ability. One of the best arms in all of college football resides in App State. Build up that offensive line, find some more speed on the outside, because they don't really have the fastest wide receivers. But I think this could make App State a very fun rebuild in your dynasties. And for that, I'm going to put them in fun. If they had a couple fast wide receivers that you could maximize that 95 cannon of your quarterback, I would put them into elite. They just don't have enough of a supporting cast, an underrated supporting cast, for them truly to get top tier. But I can tell you right now, if I'm starting to plan and pre-plan what teams I want to rebuild first in college football 26, App State is near the top of the list. Next up, we have Arizona, who are in a little bit of a transitionary period. Lost their coach to Washington. Last year was not particularly great, but when you look at it, they still have a very nice roster. You have Mahdi, who's an outstanding running back. I believe he's a transfer from Texas State. You got Fafita, who was one of the better quarterbacks in the game last year, kind of coming off a down year, undersized at 5'10", buck 86, but still an 87 overall quarterback that you might be able to get 2 seasons out of. And the rest of the roster, I mean, you got a lot of starters on offense and defense that are well into the 80s, and you have some really good underclassmen, so they could be one of those teams that if you're not particularly comfortable or confident in your recruiting skills, this could be a program for you. There's some nice athletes on the roster as well. I still think ultimately I'm going to put Arizona in solid just because their roster is still very good. And especially if you can get 2 years out of Fafita at quarterback, that does give them a huge advantage versus some of the other teams like App State and or Akron. But I think they are a prime team that needs their reputation rebuilt a little bit. They also, if you are not strong at recruiting, you get a little bit of a bump there without having to take one of these really, really good programs in the bottom tiers. Arkansas next, I mean, we're going to put them right in the exact same tier. Looking at the roster, very good roster. Very good SEC roster. You have one of, if not the handful of overpowered players in the game in Taylon Green at quarterback. 6'6", 225, 91 speed, 90 acceleration, 94 throw power. All the accuracies for the most part are well and above an 80, 97 break sack. He is, I almost kept them out of the other tier just because he's going to be so fun to play with. Even if it's only 1 year, it's going to be worth it. Also have S-tier athletes at other positions. You got A.J. Green at running back with 93 speed. You got Stevens, Jalen Brown, and Jordan Anthony with a perfect 99 speed, 99 acceleration. Arkansas is pretty overpowered. So because of that, I'm going to have to put them in the solid tier, but a very fun dynasty choice. Let's take a look at Arkansas State. I think a very interesting roster. You got some great skill position players that you can rely on. You have Jalen Rayner at quarterback, 81 for a junior. You got a great 1-2 punch in the backfield, 283s in Clay and Cross. You have a bona fide wide receiver 1 for at least 1 season in Corey Rucker, 87. Not really any overpowered athletes. I think something underrated with Arkansas State is their backup quarterback. Jalen Rayner's their starter, 81. Probably no reason to move on from him right away, but they have this guy, Ryan Rivers, the sophomore, 6'6", 225 at a Little Rock, Arkansas. Not a dual threat, but again, arm talent undeniable, 95 throw power, and then you got 89 short accuracy. So you got the deep ball, 83 deep accuracy, the 95 throw power to get it there, but the checkdowns are also going to be completely viable. A lot of times when you get these low-rated cannon arm quarterbacks, they can't hit the checkdowns to save their lives, but that 89 short accuracy, that combo right there, 95 and 89, on top of the fact that you got your prototypical franchise NFL quarterback here, underrated. I think that is something that adds a lot of value to considering Arkansas State for your dynasty. They have solid jerseys as well, so with that, I'm going to put them into the fun tier. Next up, we got Army. Army is, as niche as it gets. If you like the playbook and you're going to have fun with the playbook, you might have them higher rate than what I'm going to put them on the list. They have a solid roster, led by Brady Small, the 90 overall center. Got some nice running backs. You got Noah Short at wide receiver. I remember that because this was one of our favorite rebuilds that we did in College Football 25. So a lot of the players are still there. Noah Short was very fun. But again, it all comes down to the playbook here. And I think that this would be, say, Control-C, Control-V. For pretty much any of the military schools, you have two ways. One, are you going to embrace their offense, which I think you probably should, or there is also the challenge of always trying to modernize these schools. And if you did that, you'd probably make it for a little bit more challenging of a rebuild. We'll say as well, quarterback room for that offense, not a lot of great athletes. So that could definitely add to the challenge. Ultimately, Army's always going to be so niche that I have to kind of cap them at solid. But if you want to embrace the chaos of that offense, which is fun every now and again, solid team. Now we got Auburn. I'm telling you right now, they're going into solid just because they have a very good roster. Not going to be particularly difficult to rebuild, but they've been starved for success long enough, and they have fun enough players on their roster that I think it would be a little too much of a stretch to put them into the the bottom two tiers. But when you look at it, you have multiple guys that are going to be in the conversation for first-round picks. Keldrick Falk, Singleton, Cam Coleman as a sophomore at 6'3" with 93 speed is ridiculous. You have Luz, one of the best centers in all of college football. You got Jackson Arnold, the Oklahoma transfer at quarterback, who's pretty much ready to go. You get some great athletes on the roster. You have great underclassmen on the roster. And while Jackson Arnold's probably going to be your starter, you have Deuce Knight, the true freshman. 6'4", 87 speed, 91 acceleration, 91 throw power, 85 throw on the run, dual threat. With that 89 juke move can make a lot of guys miss. A very, very fun quarterback. So I'm going to put Auburn in the category of, they're not going to be that challenging of a rebuild, but they've been starved for success. They're kind of middle ground of the SEC. So you're going to, be going into the bloodbath, which is the SEC. You got a lot of fun players as well. So I think that's an interesting choice. Shout out NTE. Oh, here we go, baby. Back to the cupcakes. We got Ball State. One player above an 80 overall. Rest of the roster looks kind of not great. Dog water. Don't have a single player for these pre-release ratings above a 90 speed, which we're kind of using as our casual approach to determine whether or not a player is a great athlete or not. A lot of good athletes. The quarterback room in particular is nothing special. You have Kelly here has some decent speed, decent dual threat ability, kind of limited as a passer. Underclassman Walter Taylor, the junior, 6'5", 230, with 92 throw power. That's kind of the threshold that I'm using, looking through these ratings ahead of time. 92 and above, that's kind of all right, you're starting to get there with some decent arm talent. So for a small school, you got some options there. But you know what? Not every cupcake team, I think, should automatically make it into fun. You got to have other things as well. And unfortunately, outside of just calling them Ball State, jerseys aren't really on point. The roster kind of sucks. The only thing going for them is that they're a cupcake roster, and you'll be able to take them from the ground all the way to hopefully an elite dynasty. So that journey is what makes them an interesting school, but nothing else really makes them that fun, so I'm going to put them in solid. Baylor has a very good roster, but a school that is still not that farly removed from the death penalty. You look at it, they have a Bryson Washington at running back at 90 overall. Outside of that, you got Sawyer Robinson, who's getting a lot of potential hype this year to be a guy that maybe moves up a lot of draft boards for the 2026 NFL class. Going back to the Matt Rule days, they've always had a fine pool of big-time athletes, maybe a little less than what I would have expected, but still plenty of speed, led by Kobe Pretense, the senior with 93. You got Jeremy Evans here at linebacker, 71, but he has 90 speed, so a great underrated user. Baylor's jerseys, I love the combo. I'm a sucker for the green jerseys, but ultimately the roster is so good already that I can't put them much higher than solid, but always a fun rebuild, kind of the outside looking in. SMU's probably passed them in the power rankings of Texas schools. So the backstory of can you make Baylor the top premier school in the state of Texas always has that going for them. So it's a solid rebuild. Boise State is up next, and at the risk of kind of putting specific teams, especially based off performance last year, like in the same tier of guys, I'm going to go a little bit of a hot take here. Take a look at Boise State. Huge drop-off from not having Ashton Jeanty. You still have one of the best tackles in the nation in Cage Casey, 90 overall, as a junior, so a chance you could get a good role for him and Virgin Morgan, some of their top players here. To get 2 seasons out of them, not just one. You have an established quarterback in Maddox Madsen on the roster. Bunch of players that, you know, make the roster competitive, but it's not too overpowered. It's not like one of those rosters where a bunch of your starters on offense and defense are 85 plus, which is normal for a team that just made the college football playoff. We got some nice athletes on the roster. I think when you factor in, you know, they were close but no cigar. You got the great jerseys, you got the great field. It makes sense to probably put them in solid based off of previous schools, but yeah, I'm gonna knock them up into fun and see if you could take over Boise State, post Ashton Jeanty, and build that program out to be a legitimate playoff contender and future champion. Next up, we're going to take a look at Boston College, who were sneakily pretty good last season. I won a little bit of money betting on Boston College, most notably when they absolutely belt to bottomed Florida State. Take a look at the roster. Got a good, healthy chunk of juniors and seniors. You got Carter Davis, the sophomore, as an 84 overall. Athletically speaking, nothing too crazy. Quarterback room is kind of mid. Grayson James assumed start. You got Dylan Longerin, who looks a little bit better as a sophomore with 92 throw power, some decent accuracies. Kind of Boston College, like in the middle between fun and solid. I think solid's fair for them, but they're a tweener between the two. No problem with the Boston College rebuild. Next up, we got Bowling Green. Just lost their head coach to my Philadelphia Eagles. Lost the cheat code that is Harold Fannin, the tight end that was the most productive receiver in college football last year. This is a roster, as of pre-release ratings, does not have a player above an 80 overall, which is always good if you're looking for, you know, that cupcake squad. You got Arliss Bordigham, the transfer from my beloved Florida Gators. Not a lot of prolific athletes. And while they have Drew Pine at quarterback, I think's a Notre Dame transfer, the quarterback that got me interested is the freshman Dante Young, 6'1", 200 pounds. Decent athleticism, but he has the 94 throw power, one of the biggest arms in all of college football 26 as a true freshman on a cupcake squad that you're going to be able to potentially get a full 4 years out of. Unfortunately, they don't really have any wide receivers with prolific height, weight, speed to kind of maximize that cannon of an arm. But you know what? They're a tweener, but I'm going to squeak them into Elite Dynasty because you have the cupcake roster. You got a brand new head coach. You're going to be starting from the bottom if you want to use the realistic coaches and the existing coach tree. I imagine they're going to have like a level 0 coach. So the same as if you were starting with a custom coach. They have a cupcake roster, check. True freshman quarterback with an S-tier arm, check. And plenty of room to growth. I think the only reason why they're not like I would say consensus Elite Dynasty is that you don't necessarily have the complementary options around. But you have the quarterback piece. That's the most important piece. Go just straight up, get some deep threat recruits, add some speed to maximize that arm. I think you got an Elite Dynasty option with Bowling Green. I'll take a look at Buffalo in the MAC. Got a couple nice players. They probably have some of the high, like, you know, in terms of peaks and valleys for MAC teams, they have some of the highest rated players. You got Murdoch, 90, Henderson at running back, 88. Always, you know, you think of Buffalo in football, you think of a strong running game. You got Victor Snow, who has 93 speed at wide receiver. A couple ballers on the offensive line. The quarterback, Roberson, has good speed. 86 speed, 91 acceleration. So you get some dual threat ability. The 84 throw power kind of sucks. Also doesn't at least have the complement of like good short accuracy, so you can get the ball out quick on a rhythm. But if you do want to commit to just straight up running the football all the time, Buffalo's a great option. So you know what? I'm going to show them a little respect. They're going to go right into the fun tier. I'll just say, upon further review, BYU, who's up next, as expected, a very good roster. You got Retzlaff at quarterback. I know there's some off-the-field stuff going on there, but we have a lot of starters well into the 80s. You have a good crop of underclassmen. You have some great athletes. Evan Johnson, the junior corner with 96 speed. Parker Kingston, wide receiver, 96 speed. Cody Hagan, wide receiver, 91 speed. Chase Roberts is an absolute beast. I think respecting the roster, we're going to have to put BYU into solid because it's not that much of a challenge. So now in the ACC, we have the Cal Golden Bears, who are a pretty competitive roster. You got a good mix on both offense and defense. Looks like a little bit stronger defense with their top 5 being all on the defensive side of the ball. And you got some draftable players. It's a team that you're trying to reestablish yourself in a new division from the fallout of the Pac-12. and they may have one of the most underrated, I don't even really know who he is, overpowered wide receivers in the game if these pre-release ratings hold true, and that is Desmond James, the sophomore wide receiver. 6'2", 195 pounds, 97 speed, 97 acceleration. Now, the catching stuff is pretty much in line with what you expect. 77, so sub 80, 85 jump, but he has 91 change of direction. Like, this is going to be a very, very cheesy player, and a guy that, absolutely, if you do a Cal Dynasty, he's probably going to be winning Heisman, or at least in Heisman contention if I was playing with them. So with that, I'm going to just strictly honest the fact that they're probably more of a solid roster, solid organization. But I think because they have a couple fun players, in particular, like maybe one of the cheesiest wide receivers in the game, I'm gonna bump them up into the fun tier. Next up, we got the Chippewas out of Central Michigan in the MAC. Fairly MAC-ish roster, a couple players above an 80. Kwiatkowski at linebacker, the senior, is their best available player. Nothing really too crazy on the athletic side of things. Quarterback room, Flores, kind of mid. DeMott, kind of mid. Got the senior Labas with 91 throw power. So, I mean, not a great quarterback room. Just as I go through these teams, there's kind of two ways to interpret that. Not a great quarterback room. That's either, no, don't want that as my starting point, or yeah, want that as my starting point. So, if I'm rebuilding a team, there are some times that I absolutely just immediately, in my first recruiting cycle, want to get, like, my next kind of, like, franchise quarterback, if you will, in the college football world. You'd be able to get that opportunity with Central Michigan. Decent jerseys. I think ultimately I'll just put them in the solid tier, and that's not just because I know he's not there. I actually think he just retired. The Jim McElwain hate, but yeah, I think solid's fair for them. Charlotte 49ers up next. Kind of, we're getting on a streak of teams that just don't really have overly impressive rosters, which, if that's what you're looking for in starting a dynasty, the cupcake era, that's what you're getting here. Not a lot of great athletes, couple players above 90 speed as it stands. Quarterback room across the board, Harrell, Loftus, and Wilk. Nothing too great there. Their jerseys ain't nothing to write home about, so they're also just kind of going to go in that purgatory spot of solid. You could definitely make an argument of them being a fun dynasty to take them from the bottom and bring them all the way up to the top. Next up, we're going to take a look at the first kind of true Cinderella team of the college football playoff era, the Cincinnati Bearcats, who have one of the most dominant pound-for-pound players. Now, you're only going to get him for 1 year, but the Godfather, Deontay Corleone, 325 pounds, built like a nose tackle, 97 strength, but he has 75 speed and 84 acceleration. So for even just 1 year, as a user, you could go God mode with him. Outside of that, they also have some studs across the roster. They're one of the better teams. Got some great athletes. Cyrus Allen, wide receiver, 82 with 93 speed. You got Matthew McDoom. I think he's a Coastal Carolina transfer. He's decent. Evan Pryor, got a running back with 90-plus speed, 94 acceleration. Even in the quarterback room, I know he's a junior, so you're probably only going to get 2 years out of him, but Brendan Sorsby's interesting. 6'3", 235, good enough athlete, has that 93 throw power and 87 short accuracy. So I think a lot of key pieces here that Cincinnati's going to be a fun start-to-day team. Year one, you're going to have some impact playmakers, and then you're going to be able to kind of flush out and get your own recruits involved year two and beyond. Out there in the Big 12, like, they're not the big dogs anymore. I'm going to put Cincinnati, honestly, I'll put them in the fun tier just because I think Corleone is honestly one of the best D-line users in the whole game. Remember when Coastal Carolina was kind of really good for a while there? Just the ups and downs of, that's just what happens. The roster is, not too bad. You got a clear wide receiver one in Jamison Tucker, 6'2" with 90 speed. You got a nice running back there in Jalen John. Got a couple decent athletes, but nothing too crazy. Absolute logjam at quarterback. Emmett Brown has some good athleticism. There's not a lot separating this whole room. Barber's there, not too bad. Larry Garfield, 89 on MJ Morris, the junior. You got Tad Hudson. I mean, just, hey, if you want to go to a team that has 6 jerseys, blue field, a quarterback competition, you start right away. I'm putting Coastal Carolina in the fun tier. You got the jerseys are on point, the branding's on point, the home field's on point, the backstory, the Myrtle Beach party school. It's a cupcake enough squad. Honestly, they're probably in the bubble between elite and fun. You know what? I don't want to have the elite be super exclusive. They'll just make the cut. But full disclosure, both Bowling Green and Coastal Carolina, in my opinion, they're barely making the cut to elite. We'll have some teams coming up that are clear-cut elite. Next up in the Mountain West, we have Colorado State. They were one of my favorite teams to rebuild last year in college football 26. Take a look at their roster right now. You get the running back, Justin Marshall, the sophomore, 83. So but I'm going to guess, for a lot of these players, you got to make the assumption that they'll have pretty decent skill caps, 83 with 91 speed. So that is a very fast running back. Got a good mix of offense and defense as your plus 80 overall players, led by Fowler Nicolosi at quarterback, who's a decent enough athlete with some pretty good quarterback stats, headlined by that 90 throw power. Got a couple athletes well over 90 speed as well. You're always going to have the aura that if you go Colorado State, you got that immediate competition with Coach Prime and the Buffs. So for that, I'll put them in solid for now, but they're in the tweener between solid and fun. Definitely, if someone in here made the argument that they're a fun team, I wouldn't, aggressively disagree with that. Next, we have Colorado, who's going to be probably one of the most polarizing teams on this list. You either like them or hate them. I've been very public that I am a fan of everything that's going on at Colorado right now. You got two players on the offensive line that are above a 90 in Seton and Hill. McKinney, Otis, the transfer from Alabama. You have legitimate NFL talent. You have some great freshmen on this roster. You have some great athletes on this roster. McKell, 6'1" freshman wide receiver with 96 speed. You got Hayden in the backfield with 92 speed. Then you get the present and future at quarterback. Salter, the senior transfer from Liberty, 90 speed, 92 acceleration, 92 throw power, 90 short accuracy, 90 throw on the run. Just a very dynamic playmaker. If you played against him with Liberty last year on Heisman, he cooked pretty much every time you played. So you had him for 1 year. Then you get the 5-star in Juju Lewis freshman, who also has 90 throw power. Pretty good athleticism, pretty good numbers across the board. So you don't have to worry about the quarterback position if you pick Colorado, which could be a plus or minus depending on what you're looking for in a dynasty. But I think because the roster is so good, I have to put them in solid right now. But I'd have them as a tweener between solid. You know what? Screw it. I'll put them up in fun. Why not? Let's see if you can do enough to get Colorado over the hump with that prime era to get them into the college football playoff. I think that'd be a really fun challenge to do in Dynasty. Next up, we got Delaware. First time in the game, and cupcake as it could get on the roster. Only 2 players, potentially above an 80 overall. Not a lot of great athletes. Interesting option at the quarterback. Marker's the highest rated, but Blake Brown here with that 93 throw power is pretty interesting. I think for me to make them into an elite dynasty, they would have to have maybe a couple more sleeper players, but the fact that they're a first-year team, you got to just throw them right into fun. Next up, we have Duke, and I think I underrated them a little bit. They have some big dogs. Chandler Rivers is regarded as one of the top corners in football. Terry Moore, likewise, as far as defensive backs. You have Brian Parker on the O-line into the 90s. They got Mensa, the big transfer from Tulane, as an 89 overall, 6'3", with 83 speed, 93 throw power, very good accuracy, especially on the run. Some great athletes. Andrel Anthony, the transfer, I feel like he started at Michigan, then went to Oklahoma, 94 speed wide receiver. Got a bunch of dudes, honestly, 90 plus, which is very nice. So unfortunately, with this roster being a lot better than expected, I'm going to put them into solid just because I don't necessarily know how difficult the challenge would be. They have a very nice roster. Next up, we have East Carolina. They already got the great logo. They have great jersey selection. Their roster is, fringe cupcake. Got a couple players into the 80s. Anthony Smith, 6'3", senior wide receiver with 92 speed. Their starting running back, London Montgomery, has 92 speed. They also have a backup running back, Jenkins, so a nice 1-2 attack with 93 speed. You got another running back in Marlon Gunn. A couple good guys on the defensive side of the ball. On a dual threat quarterback, they got Mike Wright, 6'4" with 90 speed, 90 acceleration. 85 throw power is not the best, but you get the 86 throw on the run, the 85 break sack, the 80 short accuracy. Hell, you can line him up at wide receiver if you want to. Just a hell of an athlete to have on the offensive side of the ball. Because I think they got the aura, they got the branding, they have a very fun plug-and-play roster right out the gate. I'm going to put East Carolina up in the elite tier. I have Eastern Michigan, who is a pretty typical, mid to low tier Maction roster. A couple guys in the 80s. You got a wide receiver 1 senior and a running back 1 senior that are some of your best players, which you can rely on. Athletically speaking, nothing too impressive. Starting quarterback is Noah Kim. Where did he start? Was he Michigan State? He got the 90 throw power, so you do got a 1-year kind of rental there with a decent enough quarterback. Got the gray field, which helps their branding just a little bit. It's different, it's unique, but ultimately not enough fun pieces on the roster for me to want to put them into the fun tier, so I'll have them in solid. Take a look at Florida National, the team that we used in our kind of main franchise a little bit last season. They have the Vice U jerseys, elite branding with Florida National. Their roster has a couple nice pieces. Keon Owens was very good for us last season. Keon Jenkins at quarterback had a good little, dual threat ability. Not as many good athletes as I was expecting. Again, maybe this is just the pre-release rosters. When they get fine-tuned for launch, we'll have a couple more guys into the 90s. But I think purely off of branding alone and the cupcakiness and the upside and ceiling, I'm putting FIU in the fun tier. We got Florida Atlantic. The Owls up next. They got Messer and Veldkamp. I think just getting, those are both Western Kentucky transfers. I remember from our Western Kentucky franchise. Veldkamp, the gigantic 6'6", 236 quarterback. Decent enough athlete. Got the 90 throw power, 93 mid accuracy, 87 short. So that's an awesome quarterback to have. Not a lot of prolific athletes, however. Anytime you get these smaller schools in big states where they have a chance to kind of complete the whole grind, and at some point you can shoot for the stars of becoming the top team in the state of Florida. With Florida Atlantic, I'm going to put them as like a fringe, solid to fun, but I'll squeeze them into fun. Florida State is Florida State. Very much probably the worst underperformers last year. They have a solid roster. It's definitely not overpowered by any means. You got a couple of decent athletes. Squirrel White is there with that 95 speed, which honestly, I get, these could get fine-tuned. He could be even faster. You got Holmes in the backfield, 220 pounds with 94 speed. That's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're going for like biggest program that's down bad, you could maybe potentially overvalue Florida State as a rebuild. I think if you put them into fun, I'm a Gators fan. I don't like Florida State, so maybe I'm going to hold it against them. I'm going to put them in solid, but they're kind of like, I would say Colorado State, where if you wanted to put them into fun and you wanted to make a passionate plea that defend why they should be in fun, I wouldn't get aggressive against you denying that. Got Fresno State up next, and great name, first team all name, Alzillian Hamilton as their top corner, which is kind of hilarious. They also have a lot of talent. They have Corey Foreman, who I think was a former 5-star for USC. Great edge rusher, great user to have immediately. 6'4", 245. Now he's a senior. You only get him once. But 86 speed, 92 acceleration, that's going to be pretty fun. How about also the fact you have E.J. Warner, so you got Kurt Warner's son as your starting quarterback. You got Rayshawn Luke as your starting running back, or potentially starting running back, the junior, who has 96 speed and 95 acceleration, one of the fastest running backs in the game. You got 93, 91, like it's a pretty fast roster. And you know what, with that, I like it. I like, Kurt Warner's kid there as well. They're going fun. And I think, again, you can maybe make the argument that they could be elite with those stars. But now the fact that those guys are not going to be there long term, it's not like they're sophomores and freshmen. You're not going to have as much legs with those players versus teams that have those fun guys that you could have potentially for 4 years. So I think Fresno State in the fun is a good tier, appropriate tier for them. Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt looks, honestly, more plus 80 players than I was expecting. Good mix, too, on offense and defense. Defensive secondary looks pretty good. A couple of guys on the offensive line. Now, a lot of these guys are, you know what, there actually is a good chunk of juniors, so you're not just going to have a lot of one-and-dones. Not a lot of crazy athletes on the roster. Interesting quarterback, though, if these ratings hold true. A freshman, 6'3", 240, can move a little bit in the pocket, has that 90 throw power out the gate, 83 short accuracy. That's a pretty damn fun, good quarterback right there that you might get 4 full years out of. Fun freshman quarterback. The marketing and branding and aura is not particularly strong, but they do have the challenge of trying to take over and become the best team in Georgia. I'll put them up there in the fun tier. All right, next we'll take a look at Georgia State. Can they join them in the fun tier? Taking a look at the roster, they have Ted Hurst at wide receiver, 6'3" with 92 speed. I don't know if 5 of their top 6 players being running backs is going to hold true to launch. They have someone named DeIcy Hopkins, which is kind of awesome. A couple decent athletes there. Their quarterback group's kind of a logjam. You got Vilo, the senior, 6'5" with 91 throw power. Stanley looks kind of mid. Cameron Brown looks decent. Hatter, the freshman, 84 speed, 88 acceleration, 89 throw power. If he has decent steel caps, you can get that into the 90s. 84 throw on the run. That's a kind of fun quarterback. But I think if these ratings hold true, if you told me I'm picking over a team where 5 of my top 6 players are all running backs, I'm probably not going to love that roster as a starting point. So I'm going to unfortunately demote them down to the solid tier. Plus branding and stuff like that's pretty generic. Ooh, we got another team. I don't know if I respect them enough. I knew they were going to be good. They got Eric Rivers, who was our best wide receiver at Florida International. Jamal Haynes is a beast at running back. You have Haynes King, who is one of the most overpowered quarterbacks in the game. 91 speed, 93 acceleration, 90 throw power, 92 throw on the run, a elite athlete. He's only one and done as a senior, but a very fun quarterback for year one. Man, oh man, a couple plus 90s. The plus 80s just keep going on and on. Athletically speaking, they got some dudes. You got a freshman with 94 speed. Another freshman, 92 speed. It's one of those ones, I think I was originally going to put him in the fun, but I've kind of held having like sneaky good rosters against teams. So like they probably should be in the solid tier for now, but they're tweeners between solid and fun, I think. Next up, we got Hawaii. I did spoil on my Twitter. That is going to be our first rebuild that we do on the channel in College Football 26. Will be the Rainbow Warriors. The roster's solid. I will be honest, more plus 80 players than I was expecting. You got a couple guys here with 90 speed. Ashlock at wide receiver, 6'2" with 91 speed. Every time we did anything with Hawaii, he transferred away right away year one. So hopefully that's not the case in College Football 26. Hawaii has the UCLA transfer. Demarcius Davis, 6'5", freshman. Good, not necessarily a dual threat, but good mobility, 90 throw power, really nice accuracy. So that's a great starting point. And you know me, I love the aura of Hawaii. As a Canadian that just doesn't, I understand, but doesn't fully understand American sports, Hawaii should have the best home field advantage in all of college football. Having to do all that travel, make it mean something. And for the love of God, give them some retro throwbacks. Rainbow retro throwbacks, please. They are an elite dynasty. And also, spoilers a little bit from the College Football 26 beta. In College Football 25, there was a lot of just nonsensical deal breakers that seemed to glitch for Hawaii. Like hometown things that were just deal breakers, even though they were from there. Seemed to be fixed, because obviously I did a little bit of try run to make sure that Hawaii was going to be a great choice. So that now helps them out a little bit if you were personally remembering that and concerned if that carried over into College Football 26. England, Houston, they got awesome jerseys. Some of the best jerseys upcoming. Pretty good roster, though. They have Kozoil, the 92, 6'6" tight end. Got a bunch of guys plus 80s. You got Weigman, who this time last year, was considered a potential first-round quarterback. Athletically speaking, not a freakishly athletic roster, but definitely more than enough juice. And you got Austin Carlisle, a freshman quarterback now, niche size at 5'10", $185. But anytime you get a quarterback that has 92 speed, 94 acceleration, you can have a lot of fun with that. So fun roster, they'll go in the fun tier. Unfortunately, if you're hoping for Illinois to get a lot of love, damn good roster. 3 players plus 90 overall. Gabe Jackus is a beast. You got Altmaier, 89 overall. One of those guys that's kind of the outside looking in for the top quarterbacks in next year's draft class. You got Olin Kreutz's kid here and Josh Kreutz at center. Way more plus 80 players than I was expecting. Athletically speaking, got a couple nice athletes. Khalil Valentine in the backfield, 82 overall running back with 92 speed. Yeah, this is a pretty good roster. Wouldn't be overly difficult to make them good, I don't think. So we're going to put Illinois in the solid tier. We keep the same energy for Indiana. I love the story of Indiana. I love the coach. Love the fact last year they had the Canadian quarterback, but this is a very good roster. 4 potential 90-plus rated players. You get the big transfer from Cal and Mendoza, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. Athletically speaking, you got some outstanding athletes. Pond, Sharp, Hemby in the backfield with 93 speed. Cooper at wide receiver, 92. They're pretty overpowered. Give them the same energy for making the playoff that I did, I guess I sure, but we'll put them into solid firmly. Speed the video up a little bit. Iowa State's roster's also a lot better. I'm not going to say maybe a lot better. I knew they were going to be pretty good, but that is not a roster that's going to need a lot of work to make them good. So I think we could firmly put Iowa State in solid, as well as Iowa in the solid. That is a pretty damn good roster. Now, they got Gronowski, who's the big FCS quarterback transfer, and lighting it up in FCS, so he's got to make the big jump. But I think from a trenches standpoint, you have a bunch of dogs in the secondary. It's fairly easy to also throw Iowa into the solid tier. But I think the challenge and appeal of finally making them have a good offense, especially if you're an Iowa fan, if you can believe that could have them bump up into the fun tier, wouldn't hate you for it. Jacksonville State up next, and it's your classic CUSA. They're going to get the same kind of branding. It's like Maction roster, where there's a couple nice pieces, but ultimately won't be a too overpowered roster. You had Gavin Wimsatt at quarterback, 6'3", 227, 90 throw power, good dual threat ability, so a fun quarterback, and he's a junior, so you potentially could get 2 years out of him. Like the branding and stuff like that doesn't really move the needle a whole lot, so they're kind of a meh roster that will go into solid. Ooh, James Madison. Bet you it had more plus 8. I thought that roster was going to look a little bit more similar to what we just saw. And they got some 80s. 80s going on. Adaye at running back, 91. You get, oh, wow, Alonzo Barnett. 6 feet tall. He's a junior. 89 speed, 93 acceleration. Pretty good throw accuracies. 89 throw power is not a problem. 95 throw on the run. A great dual threat. You got great 1-2 punch in the backfield. Petway has 92 speed, 93 acceleration, 91 and 94 for Adaye. Okay. I'm gonna put them into solid just so we don't have too many fun teams, but there's certainly a tweener between solid and fun. I'm gonna pick it up just a little bit because some of these rosters I've just kind of looked ahead are very good that don't necessarily need. Kansas State will go into solid, pretty damn good roster. I think Kentucky, another team that their rosters, you're not going to need a lot of work to have them, I don't think, competing in the SEC again. So for that, I think we can kind of just quickly throw them in the solid tier. I think Missouri can also kind of quickly go in the solid tier. I think you can throw Nebraska quickly in the solid tier. A lot of these teams. And North Carolina is going to be a popular team. You know what? I'm going to put them in fun purely based off the Belichick storyline. They're going to be this year's Colorado. I think the team that like every content creator, everybody in your friend circles will be like, oh, I'm going to do something no one's thinking of. North Carolina Dynasty. But the fact of the matter is, pretty fun storyline, pretty fun circumstances. Can't knock them for it. I was kind of skipping ahead. I think TCU from a roster standpoint. I think Washington from a roster standpoint, pretty good. Don't need a lot of work, so we'll just automatically put them in the solid tier. Now move on to Kansas. I have some very nice pieces. A couple of nice seniors, so it's a team that, their best players are only going to have them one and done. Like literally all of their players that are above at 80 overall are only going to be one and done. Jalen Daniels is a very fun dual threat quarterback. That's a big time speed. Freshman wide receiver Bryce Haynes, 6 feet tall with 95 speed, 95 acceleration. Training's pretty cool. The idea of taking a basketball school and making them a football school, I'll put them in fun. So we have the perennial cupcake squad, Kennesaw State Owls. Their roster only 2 players above an 80 overall in the CUSA. Definitely one of the worst rosters in the game. So if you're looking for the utmost challenge, they certainly need to be the top of the list. No crazy athletes either. The quarterback situation, led by Dexter Williams, is kind of mid. Purely based off of vibes and how hard it's going to be to make them good, I'll slide them into the fun tier. And I think we also can do that with Kent State, whose roster is very similar. Only a couple players above an 80. No real great athletes. Quarterback situation is pretty dire, all things considered. So if you want a clean slate and build your dynasty from the ground up, Kent State, Kennesaw State, 2 great options. So we have Liberty, who I got in, I'm not going to say trouble, but because I said it with, out of acknowledged ignorance. I said, isn't Liberty like a cult university? But someone just said, if you call them a cult, it's kind of like BYU saying they're a cult. I was like, okay, I'm not getting in trouble. But, hey, that'd be a fun storyline. If Liberty, you make them into a cult university, that'd be kind of fun. That'd be something I would run with, and I think would be very entertaining. But I'm not saying if you're watching this, you went to Liberty, that you were in a cult. It's just like, a religious school or something like that. Strict religious school. Roster, had a couple guys into the 80s. Couple nice athletes here as well. Julian Gray, you can just run the football like crazy with the 83, 92 speed running back. Quarterback room, you got Vasco here, 91 throw power, decent enough athlete. Sophomore Cedric Sparks also get a little bit of juice there with 90 throw power. Assuming you don't want to make them into a fictional cult university, it's just not a lot going for them. Kind of a boring team. We'll put them in the solid. Another cupcake school, Louisiana Monroe. Couple players into the 80s overall. Not really any great athletes by any means, but they had one of the best drips. The college uniforms, they had those unreal helmets. Great vibes last year, which definitely is the plus of considering them. Cupcake team with good drip, as the kids say. Quarterback room, not great, not terrible. A couple guys. Herring here. The senior has 91 throw power. You got 91 throw power on Boomhauer. Great name. Shadow King of the Hill coming back on TV. Hashtag dad humor. Roster's not much to write home about, but I think Cupcake Squad, great uniforms, is going to propel them into the fun tier. Louisiana Tech up next. Damn, man, they used to have like a sneaky good roster back in the day, and unfortunately has not aged gracefully. Not really a crazy roster by any means. Not terrible. Got a couple guys there with some juice on the offensive side of the ball. You inherit a quarterback competition that you got some interesting dudes. Evan Bullock with 90 throw power, 86 short accuracy. 90 throw power, 89 short accuracy on Devontae Fitzpatrick. 91 there for Beckham. So you have a bunch of options, a fun quarterback battle right away. But other than that, not a lot of crazy vibes around Louisiana Tech, so I'm going to kind of put them into that solid tier. Could be a tweener into fun based off of the fact that I think their roster overall rating is not going to be particularly good. So a challenging rebuild ahead there. I'll take a look at the Ragin' Cajuns. And I think much like Louisiana Lafayette, you can all throw these into, like, can you take over from, like, LSU? It's like the big, that's always going to be the dragon that you're chasing with these dynasties to try to become the best school in the state. So that has a little bit of additional motivation and fun factor going into it. The roster is kind of solid. You got Shelton Sampson, the 6'4 sophomore, is the fastest player. So that's a nice little height, weight, speed wide receiver for you. Quarterback room, you got Walker Howard. Didn't he just transfer from Florida? 91 throw power. You got a guy named Lunch Winfield. Lunch. You know what? Because strictly they have a quarterback named Lunch, I'm going to put him in the fun tier as well. But ultimately for both them and ULM, it's the chase of trying to become and take a cupcake team to the best team in the state of Louisiana. Fun. This is a quick one. Louisville's roster, very good. They have one of the most overpowered running backs in the game, and Isaac Brown, who has 95 speed, 96 agility, 97 acceleration. Bunch of skill position players into the 90s. Bunch of big-time athletes on the offensive and defensive line. A very fast roster on the top end. You get Miller Moss, the transfer from USC, as your starting quarterback year one. It's not enough challenge for me to put them anywhere higher than the solid tier. Next up, we got Marshall, who are a lot worse than I thought. I was just kind of making an assumption. Damn. Very cupcakey roster. One of the more unathletic rosters we've seen. Got the great backstory. Obviously, We Are Marshall, one of my favorite football movies of all time. Classic jersey combo. Quarterback room is certainly a quarterback room. Zion Turner's a dual threat. You have the former Florida Gator, Carlos Del Rio Wilson. This could be a pretty challenging rebuild with Marshall. Honestly, I'm a fan of their jerseys. You know, try to find the next Randy Moss. I'll put them in elite. I think they're going to be probably that bad of a roster and that challenging of a rebuild. Next up, we got Maryland, who are an interesting roster. The roster itself is fairly solid. Enough guys above 80s. And it's still going to be a challenge when you're in the Big Ten. Like, you're kind of the underdogs. I always kind of like their jersey combinations for whatever that's worth. You have a couple nice athletes, a lot of them at skill positions. You got a very nice freshman quarterback. These ratings hold true. Malik Washington, 6'4 freshman with 86 speed, 90 acceleration, 90 throw power. A great dual threat quarterback that you potentially could get 4 years out of. Show a little respect. We're going to throw Michigan up here into the fun tier. So we got Memphis and another team that just has way more 80-plus rated players than I was expecting. A lot on the defensive side of the ball. You got an 80 senior quarterback here in Brendan Lewis, who has great athleticism, a nice arm, good accuracy. You got the Florida transfer, Kamari Wilson, on the defensive side of the ball. You have some great athletes. 6'2 junior C.J. Smith with 95 speed. Running back Frank Pleasant with 92 speed. All in the American. That actually might go against them. They're probably too good in relation to their conference to put them into fun. I don't necessarily know if the challenge is going to be there right away, so I'm going to knock them down into solid. Look at Miami of Ohio in the MAC. Couple players into the 80s. Athletically speaking, not a crazy roster. Ooh, you got Daquan Finn, the senior. Where was he? Toledo before? That's, you know, you only get him for 1 year, but that's a pretty nice quarterback. I mean, all things considered, he's probably one of the better quarterbacks in the MAC. Not a lot of aura there, though, as the kids say, so I'm going to put them into the solid tier as well. Michigan State in the Big Ten, nice roster. You got Jack Velling, who's won, what was he? He was like the Pac-12 back in the day when that existed, like tight end of the year. You got great speed, great athletes here, 2 90-plus wide receivers in terms of speed into the 80s overall. Nick Marsh is a nice wide receiver. You got Childs at quarterback, great dual threat ability with a cannon of an arm. But you're still, you know, you're going to be against it in the Big Ten. I think there is definitely going to be some challenge there in relation to your roster. You got a couple nice freshmen there as well. I think there's certainly a tweener, depending on, I think from a base roster standpoint, in comparison to some of the other teams we have in fun, they're obviously a lot better. But the fact that you're going to be competing in the Big Ten, it's been a minute since they've been good. I think they're another one of those teams that you can make the argument that they should be in fun, but I'll put them in solid just to be safe. Middle Tennessee State. One part of the exciting whites in Reed Blankenship from Middle Tennessee State. Couple players in the 80s. Again, pretty typical CUSA roster. Got a couple burners here. Ooh, a Marion Walker, 6'3 with 95 speed. That would be abused. when I would utilize them and get a great rate at running back there. Actually, a nice 1-2 punch, 280+ rated running backs. Decently rated quarterback for the conference as well in Variado. They're kind of fun. I mean, kind of fun, but I can't put every team that's kind of fun in fun. I don't want to overinflate that. So unfortunately, because I think from like, facilities and jerseys and stuff like that, nothing's too crazy. Pretty generic team. We'll put them solid. Ooh, Minnesota. Again, apples and oranges. Got to compare them to the conference that they're in. Minnesota has kind of been, not a super serious team, but they have fun players. Darius Taylor and Cord Parrish, who's one of the best young safeties in all of college football. An outstanding athlete. Could be potentially a two-way player. You could treat him like Travis Hunter. As you can see, has the athleticism to play DB. But look, he can run with the ball carrier, 90 change of direction, 84 ball carrier vision, 87 juke, 83 spin, 94 jumping, 85 catching. He can run routes as a receiver. So that is very, very fun. I think their roster itself is not too overpowered. Like, they're definitely not going. They're probably going to be middle tier for the Big Ten. You got Malachi Coleman, 6'5" wide receiver with 96 speed, 85 catching. Quarterback room is not particularly great. You have the true freshman Drake Lindsay, who has 92 throw power. You got Dylan Whitkey, 92 throw power. So, I mean, the challenge is there, and you got a great sprinkle of fun players. A little, maybe potentially a little bit hot. I'm putting them right in there in fun. I think that's going to be a team I'm personally looking forward to rebuilding, especially if you can get the two-way ability going with Parrish. Next, we got Mississippi State in the SEC. Name to remember, the sophomore Fluff Bothwell. 90 overall. They got a nice roster across the board. Bunch of 80s. Enough to be competitive and not get blown out every single time in SEC play. You got Brennan Thompson, the senior wide receiver, with 96 speed, 94 speed. So they actually have a lot of nice athletes here on the offensive side of the ball at the skill positions, wide receiver and running back. Blake Shapen at quarterback. Where did he come from? Was he Baylor? The transfer, I mean, again, nothing too crazy there for a senior. You got Croman Hawk, who was a big recruit for Florida State, 93 throw power for a sophomore. You could definitely work with that. Vic Sutton looks kind of solid as well. Got a nice dual threat in the freshman Camario Taylor. I'd say for the context of the SEC, there's two teams I think should classify into the fun tier, and I'll put them up there as well. Maybe do a little homage, commit to like going all out air raid and respect to the GOAT Mike Leach. We next have Missouri State, the second of the new teams, along with Delaware, making the jump to college football 26. 2 players in the 80s. Rest of the roster, very cupcake. Couple of players above 90s. Nothing too crazy. You got a decent enough starting quarterback here in Jacob Clark. Nothing crazy stats, but a 78 overall for a bottom tier cupcake roster is not brutal. I'm not seeing enough fun players to put them into the Elite Dynasty, but because alongside Delaware, they're probably going to be 2 of the worst rosters in the game, the challenge is there to certainly have them classify as a fun dynasty. Again, just to kind of quickly speed up a little bit, looked ahead at a couple other pretty rosters that I'm just going to beat around the bush and say they're too good to be fun. Wisconsin's roster is pretty solid across the board. I think they're too good to be fun. Virginia Tech now, if you like the atmosphere, the fact that Enter Sandman's been put in the game, you might want to bump them in the fun tier. But again, they have a bunch of guys. Most of their starters are like into the 80s as well. So I don't think there's going to be too much of a challenge there. UCLA getting Nico as the big transfer from Tennessee could be fun. It's also why I think they're pretty overpowered a little bit. You have your quarterback set in stone, and the rest of their roster is mixed with some pretty high-level athletes. Same with Texas Tech. I always love Texas Tech. They've been one of my favorite going back all the way to like the first NCAA games that I played as my dynasty. Love the jerseys, love the history, love being able to try to make them one of the big teams in Texas. But fact of the matter is they have a bunch of 90-plus rated players and 85-plus rated players. So the challenge isn't necessarily there. I also think just kind of with like too good to be fun rosters, Syracuse certainly jumps into that conversation. Toledo for their conference, they're very good. They're one of the best rosters in the MAC, so there's just not a whole lot of challenge there. And they've been sending a lot of goods to the NFL. I love Tulane. I love everything about Tulane. I love their aura. I love the jerseys. For the American, they're just one of the best rosters. There's just not going to be a lot of challenge there, but certainly based off of, like, I think setting and trying to make them into a powerhouse, a tweener into the fun tier, but their roster's just very, very good for their conference. I think Pitt also enters that conversation of just they got a couple 90-plus rated players, bunch of 80-plus rated players. They're going to be one of the better P5 teams. Really a sleeper to be one of the best teams in the ACC this year. Back to a military school, we have Navy, who have a 90 rated dual threat beast at quarterback in Horvath. And I think, again, just if you want to embrace the chaos of the playbook, these are going to be probably the best team, which could either hurt or put you in favor of them. They got a great height, weight, speed wide receiver, potentially Nathan Kent, 6'3" with 92 speed. Great running backs, a quarterback, running back in Horvath, who was dominant last season. I think because they are kind of niche and they are a pretty good roster, they're another team that just kind of qualifies for solid. Ugh, we got Nevada. Yikes. This might be the worst roster we've seen yet. Only one player in the 80s. Only one player with a 90-plus rated speed. You get Brock Purdy's brother as the quarterback, who's solid. I mean, you know, got some good mobility there. Yeah, that's quite the challenge. One of the worst rosters, I think, of the game, so they'll automatically get up in the fun tier. Take a look at New Mexico. If you want to run the football, look like a pretty good team to run the football. You got Humphrey, the junior, with 91 speed in the backfield. You have a freshman, DJ McKinney. These ratings hold true. A freshman, you might be able to get 4 years out of him. 91 speed, 93 acceleration. Just run the football every time. The rack room is kind of weak across the board, but you get the freshman here, Cole Welliver, 6'7" with 91 throw power, 80 short accuracy. You know, give the occasional bomb, run the football heavy. That could be a fun team. Could be fun. I'm going to put you into fun. Cupcake Squad. Oh, sorry, that's not New Mexico State. We're going to go with New Mexico. Now to give a appropriate rating to New Mexico State. Couple of 80s there. Got Stanley in the backfield, 91 speed running back. Not really a lot of other crazy athletes. Decent looking quarterback. Grant Cutler, 82 speed, 85 acceleration, 92 throw power. Not bad. Junior, 2 years out of him as well. At the risk of putting too many teams in fun, I think there's a great cupcake ability there. They have a decent looking quarterback that you could get 2 years out of. All due respect, NC State, pretty good looking roster. You have one of the best tight ends in the nation in Justin Jolly, who's going to be overpowered. You have some great athletes. Pretty quickly, just going to put you into solid there. We got the North Texas Mean Green, who are always going to have that challenge of, can you make North Texas the best school in the state of Texas? Have fun with that challenge. Get a couple players into the 80s. A couple nice athletes. Nothing too overpowered. And their quarterback room is pretty mid, all things considered. I mean, hey, that's a freshman. He has good skill caps. You can get that throw power into the 90s. Not too shabby. Always kind of like the North Texas Dynasty, so I'm going to squeeze them into fun as well. Like the jerseys. Back into the MAC, we have Northern Illinois Huskies. 2 players in the 80s. One on defense and one on offense. Not really much in terms of the athletes. Starting quarterback Jalen McCon, solid. Got some good mobility, 91 throw power. It's not bad for a 73. They just don't really do much for me, though. I'm going to put him in solid. Roster's not great, so again, you can probably put them in the bubble of cupcake teams, which could have them as a tweener into the fun category. We have Northwestern. It was a solid roster, but in the context of the Big Ten, probably near the bottom. Got a 91 offensive lineman in Tiernan. Got some running backs. Hubbard's decent. Actually got a couple nice running backs for sure. You got Preston Stone. Saka is a draftable player. Stone, the transfer, where's he? He was SMU last year. Got some good stats there. Maybe a little bit less mobility than I would have guessed. We got a couple burners here. 95, 94, 93 speed. I like the sound of that. You know what? Considering you are going to be like the bottom dwellers in the conference, I'll put them in the fun. I think that's going to be a challenge to make Northwestern one of the better teams in the Big Ten. Now we got Ohio in the MAC. Taking a look, they got 4 players into the 90s. Real nice running back. You got a quarterback here, Navarro. Now he's a senior, so he's one and done, but great dual threat. 88 speed, 80 acceleration, 89 throw power, 87 short. That's a fun quarterback, even for only a 1-year rental. Athletically speaking, nothing too crazy. Man, I wish, again, pre-release rating, I wish a couple more of these cupcake teams just had like 60 rated players that had like height, weight, speed. I thought there'd be a couple more gems I'd find by now. But with Ohio, you get, a good starting quarterback. You have the chance to potentially, make them the best team in Ohio. Very similar to like Akron. The reason why Akron's in fun, so we'll throw them in fun. Now we got Oklahoma State in the Big 12. Love the jerseys. One of my favorite jersey combos going. As far as rosters are concerned for the Big 12, probably lower side for sure. Got some nice athletes. Duhan's one of the more underrated pass rushers in college football. You have some speed here. Jalen Lloyd, 95, 94, 93. Very fast secondary, very fast wide receivers. And a very fast freshman quarterback. Haas Hengy, saying that right, 91 speed, 89 acceleration. Throw power is not the best, but as far as dual threat is concerned, that could be real fun. I think within the context of the Big 12, I love the jerseys. Going in the fun side. Back in the Sun Belt with Old Dominion, who have a tackle machine in Jason Henderson, the senior linebacker, 91 rated. Actually have a real nice defense. You got Colton Joseph at quarterback here, 6'2", 200 pounds. Got some good mobility for a sophomore. Might be able to get 3 years out of him. Two fastest players. You got a running back and a wide receiver, both sophomores, so you'll be able to have them for a minute. I like what I'm seeing. I think Old Dominion, not a big fan of like the jerseys or anything like that, but I think enough to say from a, the skill position spots and the quarterback spot, interesting, fun roster. The teams that are in the Pac-12 are always going to have a little bit different dynamic when you're trying to power rank them, because if you want to plan to revive the Big 12, there's going to be a little bit added value potentially choosing these teams as your starting point. They have Hankerson as a 90-plus rated player in the backfield. You got some nice speed here. Freshman Durant, 65, 6'1" with 93 speed. Not too shabby. Good enough athletes across the board. The former 5-star Malik Murphy Jr. with 95 throw power, pretty good athleticism. I like what I'm seeing out of the Beavers. Your teammates, the Beavers. There's an innuendo there every single time. Fun. Moving on to the spoiler makers. Purdue in the Big Ten. I kind of got depleted a little bit. Lost a lot in the portal. Lost Thieneman. Outstanding safety. Went to Oregon. Maccabee's a fun running back. Got a guy named Nitro Tuggle. Great. I can already see the memes. Quarterback room across the board. You got a dual threat here in Honeycutt. Chuba doesn't look terrible. Browns, meh. Singleton is meh. So you have an open quarterback competition, if that's something you want to look for your dynasty. I don't mind a spoiler maker revival. Fun. Take a look at Rice, who are going to have one of the most unique playbooks in all of college football. Check out Mills on Twitter. He's been hyping them up for a minute. I think this is the team he's going to be playing as primarily on his stream. Big fan of Mills and what he does for the community here. Their roster looks as bad as any roster we've seen at this point. Not a lot of crazy athletes. The quarterback room is not great at all. So the challenge is there. They're as cupcakey as a roster that will exist in college football 26. So simply because of that, they're also going to make it into the fun tier. Ooh, another team we might have missed. That's in the Big Ten. So, in context matters, but they have a lot better roster than I was expecting. Rutgers here. Got a lot of speed as well. A couple absolute burners on their squad. You get a decent one-year quarterback, and then you can go Schultz as your quarterback in year 2 and not really have a whole lot of worry. So I think we're going to have to bump Rutgers just here into the solid tier. All right, here we go, baby. Back in the COSA, back into the cupcake rosters. 4 80-plus rated players on Sam Houston. McCaskill. And I feel like he's bounced around a bunch of different schools. But again, another one of those teams is like, oh, 3 of our top 4 rated players are running backs. Again, pre-release ratings. Could be changed, could be tweaked. Got a couple nice athletes, especially for the conference. Like, these guys are definitely going to stand out. Not a lot of fast DBs in the CUSA. Got a decent enough kind of one-year quarterback. Has some mobility, decent accuracy. Hunter Watson. I kind of like their jerseys. So I'll put them, they're like a tweener for me between solid and fun, but we'll put them in fun, even though I think now in hindsight, I should have like a tier here between, which is just like cupcake teams for the sake of cupcake teams, because they're kind of crowding out our fun here a little bit. Now we have San Diego State in the Mountain West. I think this is where the context matters. I think they're probably going to have one of the better rosters in the Mountain West. You get a 91 premier pass rusher right away in Trey White. You have some pretty good athletes, probably one of the more athletic rosters in the Mountain West. Decent enough starting quarterback here in Denegal with that 90 throw power, 85 short accuracy. I love their jersey. They have some of the best helmets in all of college football, but I think for their team rating in relation to their conference, they're just as solid for me. Now, if you want to move them maybe to the Pac-12, that's a whole nother conversation. I think kind of similar vibes here for San Jose State. If you want to move them to the Big 12, that could certainly bump them up a tier, but for the Mountain West, pretty solid roster. A lot more 80s than some of the other teams, especially when your quarterback, your sophomore quarterback, is one of your highest rated players. You should be able to get multiple years out of him. He's only going to get better if the skill caps are right. Don't really have much speed. Not, their jerseys are kind of nothing special. So I think all that's kind of going against them. We're going to have to put them in the solid tier. Back in the Sun Belt with South Alabama. Got a couple guys in the 80s, kind of mix between the offense and defense. Speed is not a priority. Got a little bit of a quarterback battle here between Pyron and Bishop Davenport. Davenport does have the 90 throw power and a little bit more mobility, but a quarterback battle for sure. With all due respect to RBT, kind of meh. would have been the solid. Now here's going to be a tough one because I might contradict some of the things that I've said. You have South Florida, who I think from a roster standpoint, pretty fun roster. Maybe a little bit more 80s than I would have expected. You have a very overpowered quarterback in Byron Brown, the senior. Now, it's only 1 year, 87 speed, 90 acceleration, 92 throw power. Very, very good dual threat. I think their jerseys are pretty sick. I think they have fun players. They got speed. However, within the context of the American, they're probably going to be one of the better teams in the American, and I've used that against other teams, but I think there's just enough. I think Byron Brown's just fun enough, even for 1 year, for that first year, to put them into fun and try to make them into a powerhouse in the state of Florida. Now we're back at the Sun Belt. Take a look at Southern Miss, who have one of the best DBs in the nation in Josh Moten, the 94-speed, 6'1" corner. You got Braylon Braxton, your second highest rated player, is a quarterback here with 93 throw power. Great cannon of an arm, even though you only get him for 1 year. You got a good running back room. You got a clear wide receiver one in Elijah Metcalf. Plenty of speed in the Sun Belt. Another one of those teams try to become, Mississippi's not the same as like compared to Florida and Texas, but I try to make them the next big prolific program in the state of Mississippi. I will also throw them into fun. Take a look at Stanford. I guess, I think this is one of those ones where you take a little bit of the a little bit of the off the field. The whole Andrew Luck, he's kind of running the show there. You can make him your head coach. We did that for one of our rebuilds. Have an interesting roster for sure. You have Colin Wright, who's one of the more productive corners in all of college football. Bunch of guys into the 80s. Decent enough speedsters. Probably going to be, a little bit more challenging too with the school grades when it comes to recruiting. Quarterback room's an absolute QB competition, where you might even give it to the freshman here in Rizek. 74 has 91 throw power, some decent accuracies across the board. I think from the fact that they're not particularly good in the ACC now, I think when all is said and done, they're probably going to be a bottom tier roster. You have the Andrew Luck storyline. That's just enough to bump them from solid into fun and try to completely bring that program back to where they were during the Harbaugh years. Even, even some of the David Shaw years were pretty good. I take a look at my Temple Owls. I say mine just because they play in the Philadelphia Eagles Stadium, which is something that's always an underrated aspect, because when you play your home games, you get to play in the Eagles Stadium, which is cool and it's different and it's unique. Taking a look at their roster, they have some nice players, some pretty good athletes. Their quarterback, Evan Simon, also looks pretty decent, all things considered. He's a senior. He's kind of one and done. But the player that I had in my notes to kind of consider here for Temple is way down here in Cole Dunn, the freshman quarterback. 6'4", 225 freshman, 82 speed, 87 acceleration, 93 throw power. One of the more underrated sub-75 overall quarterbacks. Another guy you could potentially get 4 years out of. The fact that it's probably maybe out of every team that's in the potential, like who's going to get wiped from the face of the earth from a football program, a D1 football program. Temple is certainly in that conversation. I'm gonna put them into the elite dynasty here, just because you have the storyline, you play at the link, you have the fact that they have a fun true freshman quarterback. You wouldn't have to worry about developing him right away. Maybe a little bit of bias, but I think all things considered, an underrated dynasty. Probably not enough people are going to consider for what they have to offer. So I'm going to show them. I'll gas them up here a little bit and throw them in the elite tier. Ooh, another one that probably should have been addressed before, on Texas State. So they have the appeal of trying to make them really good in the state of Texas. However, for the context of Sun Belt, it's a lot of 80s. That is going to be probably one of the better rosters we've seen from the Sun Belt. They have plenty of speed as well. One of the faster rosters in the Sun Belt. Pretty fun one-year quarterback in Nate Yarnell, this big 6'6", 93 throw power QB for 1 year. Because I think they're going to be probably one of the better teams in their conference. They're going to have to get knocked down to the solid tier. Hanging the Sun Belt, we have Troy, who's not nearly as good of a roster. I have a couple players in the 80s. Speed is not necessarily a priority here, but you get a couple guys that have some juice to them. Quarterback room kind of sucks. Maybe for a small school program to have a freshman quarterback that could potentially be a 72 overall is not bad. You also have a guy named Goose Crowder on the depth chart. Just because, you get Alabama. Can you make Troy the big team in Alabama to overtake the post-Saban Alabama Crimson Tide? The roster's pretty cupcakey. They'll make it into the fun tier. Here to the American, we have the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. This is like the one thing that I say from a trend standpoint, looking through every single roster almost, that, are there going to be this many teams where like their best players are multiple running backs? Maybe there's going to be some fine-tuning there, but they're clearly, at least from this, a team that likes to run the football. Quarterback room is certainly not the best, but a true, a freshman quarterback that's a 74 overall even though his attributes kind of suck. If he has good skill caps, there could be some definitely bonuses having him already on the roster versus some other programs. I think they're kind of one of those fringe, solid, fun teams, but I think we got to maybe have to start increasing the security at the front door for the fun tier. You got to really earn it nowadays to kind of round out this video, so we'll knock them down into solid. Now we're back into UAB, similar to Troy. You got the great gauntlet to try and establish yourself as the best school in Alabama. Not a particularly good roster. Have a couple burners, but not a great athletic roster. You got Jalen Kitna at quarterback. Senior, 93 throw power. Pretty sure he's the son of John. He was a Florida Gator. The reason why he left Florida, you might not want to play him depending on how you feel about it. We'll let you can Google that if you want. Always kind of like UAB, decent jerseys. I'll throw them up into the fun tier. UCF, always kind of like UCF. Good roster in the Big 12 now, so not nearly as overpowered when they're in the American, so the challenge is certainly going to be there. Probably a mid-tier at best roster compared to the rest of the Big 12. Athletically speaking, got some good athletes. Jay Nix in the backfield, 88 overall with 93 speed. He'd be fun. He could carry the load for your offense for year one. Barry Brown looks like a pretty fun quarterback. The junior, good dual threat ability, 90 throw power. Yeah, maybe trying to bring UCF their first actual official national championship. That'd be pretty fun. And it'd be pretty tough for now them competing in the Big 12. Back into the independents, we have UConn. So I think the appeal, I don't know. I don't know if there's a whole lot of people out there that love just keeping a team in the independent for a long rebuild. You always want to move them somewhere. So I think if you want to move them somewhere, that could certainly open things up. They have Skyler Bell at wide receiver. Looks very fun, 6 feet tall with 93 speed. You got a couple of really nice running backs there. Decent players on the defensive side of the ball. But Bell definitely would be pretty overpowered. You'd force feed him on the offense. A decent enough quarterback for a year. I think what you do with UConn would be all about where you want to relocate them and not keep them in independent. But because there's so much variance, I'll just put them in solid. Hanging in independent, we got UMass, who always are just all reliable for just dog shit roster. Got some nice athletes, though. Harding at wide receiver. Hood in the backfield, both 90+. Quarterback room across the board is not great. So purely based off of Cupcake, they're always going to be in the fun tier. Now we're back in the Mountain West. We have UNLV, who have one of the best running backs in the nation in Jiden Thomas, 89 overall. They got 3 real nice. You got just a dominant rush attack. And, oh, what do you got in quarterback? You got Orgy, the transfer from Michigan, 89 speed, 90 acceleration, 90 throw power. One of the funnest, overpowered, dual threat quarterbacks from last year. Got nerfed a little bit because obviously was not particularly good, but putting him now on UNLV, lesser competition, he should be able to run over guys. Athletically speaking, got a lot of speed here. Got the Alabama transfer, JoJo Earl at wide receiver. It's a damn good team. Very easy backstory to get on. I'm gonna put them in elite. I always love a UNLV dynasty. Very, very fun. They got a great roster as well this year. But on to Utah State, they got 4 players above an 80 overall. Ike Larson's one of the best DBs in college football. Athletically speaking, you know, pretty similar to a lot of the rosters in the Mountain West. Quarterbacks are not particularly great either. There's not a lot of aura, not a lot of vibe with Utah State, so I think they're just kind of boringly going to go in the solid tier. But if you want a challenge, certainly there's going to be one there to make them good. Now back into the CUSA, we have the UTEP Miners. If you know anything about the history of my channel, you know I haven't always seen all eye to eye with UTEP. Pretty much went to war over Aaron Jones with his brothers, but that is behind us. Aaron Jones now a big fan of the channel. Take a look at the roster. A couple guys in the 80s. Kenny Odom at wide receiver, the junior with 93 speed, 94 acceleration. Looks pretty fun. Got a couple fast guys as well, but not too overpowered of a roster. Former 5-star Malachi Nelson. Wasn't he a 5-star? I mean, a fun quarterback. State of Texas. I like the jerseys, like the vibes, love the stadium. I think maybe surprised. I'm gonna put them up here into elite. Tides has turned. Is that enough for me to get on the good page of UTEP? Back in the American, we have the UTSA Roadrunners, who actually have a little bit better roster than I was expecting. A lot of guys into the 80s. Athletically speaking, pretty good as well. Well, that's a real good offense. Running back, wide receiver, running back, tackle, wide receiver, running. I mean, there's something going on with the running back ratings, I think. A little bit, but I mean, that looks like a really good starting offensive line. Unfortunately, a lot of those guys are seniors, so they will be one and done. But vibes are always strong with the Roadrunners. I'm going to put them into fun. Good branding, good jerseys, fun roster. All things considered, challenging rebuild. Here's what I've been waiting for. Vandy in the SEC. I think if you want to go... Now, Stowers is a senior. Pavia is a senior. So like your two big dogs. You have Keanu Cott at pass rush, 6'4", 232, one of the most athletic pass rushers in the game with 86 speed, 94 acceleration. So if you can get past the fact that those guys are kind of going to be one and done, you got a 6'7" D tackle who's a beast. You got plenty of speed, even if, again, a lot of the roster is old. I think they're going to be one of the funner rebuilds. Challenging rebuilds, competing right away in the SEC. How far can you get with that Pavia-Stowers connection? And I don't necessarily want this list to be super short-sighted, but I think in terms of challenge, just year one, what can you do? I think Vandy just squeaks into the elite, because not only are you going to be able to have how far can you go year one, how are you going to rebound once you lose Stowers and Pavia into year two to try and make them into a powerhouse in the SEC. Therefore, I'm going to give them elite dynasty status. Looking at Virginia in the ACC, another team that's maybe a little bit better than I was anticipating. Just keep scrolling, lots of 80s across the board. Couple nice athletes. Maybe honestly a little too many 80s for my liking in the ACC. So we're going to come back and we're going to squeeze them right into solid as well. In the ACC, we have Wake Forest, a little bit different, not as many 80s. You have one of the most overpowered running backs in the game. He's a senior, but Damon Claiborne, 96 speed, 95 acceleration, 91 agility, 91 change of direction, 87 ball carrier vision, 88 carrying, can catch with the backfield with 76. Just run your entire offense through this guy. He is going to dominate in college football 26. Some pretty good athletes outside of that. Same kind of deal with Robbie Ashford, the Auburn transfer at quarterback, 88 speed, 91 acceleration, decent enough throw power, can throw on the run. I think Wake Forest would be pretty fun. They also have one of those gimmicky playbooks that'd be challenging to learn, but once you get the hang of it, definitely going to be pretty overpowered in the right hands. You know, I'll squeeze them in. We already have a lot of people to make the prestige of being in the fun tier not as meaningful, but we'll put them into the fun tier. Washington State in the Pac-12. Again, if you want to rebuild the Pac-12, they just lost their very good quarterback to Oklahoma and John Mateer, so you have quite the drop-off there. Pretty solid roster. They're going to be competitive regardless if you want to rebuild the Big 12 or move them somewhere else. They have some good athletes. Angel Johnson, the backfield's pretty nice. You got the junior Johnny Shepard, one of the very athletic dual threat, 89 speed, 88 acceleration. Throw power is not the best, but just get this guy moving out of the pocket. He can do some work for you. So again, putting respect on the Mike Leach, we'll put Wazoo here in the fun category. Love West Virginia. Probably the one team that I wasn't able to get to a rebuild that was constantly commented for me to rebuild. And I think because of that, I'm going to make them a priority when we get into Madden 26. The Mountaineers in the Big 12, there's always been, much like Texas Tech, those are kind of the two teams that back in the day I always loved rebuilding. Really nice roster, bunch of great athletes led by Jaheim White, who's going to be a nasty running back this year. Had the turnover at quarterback as well, so you got to find your next guy. Do they have him on the roster? Doesn't really look like it, so there's a challenge within itself. Outstanding atmosphere. Love the vibes. Great brand. I'm going to respectfully put West Virginia also in the fun tier. We love Western Kentucky around the parts. There is no other team in college football that I've made more money gambling on than Western Kentucky because they're always underrated. They have an offense that can always upset potential opponents. But it does look like they lost quite a bit in the transfer portal, unfortunately. Roster's not particularly good. Very overpowered player here in Quincy Burrows. 6'3" junior with 96 speed. Ooh, that's a sleeper. McIver at quarterback, the senior, that they lost Veltkamp in the transfer portal. He doesn't really look anything special. You have to get the quarterback spot figured out. But I love the helmets. Love the weird mascot. The vibes are nice at Western Kentucky. The jerseys are underrated. I'm always going to put Western Kentucky in the fun tier. Back of the MAC, we have the Western Michigan Broncos. 4 players above in 80 overall. You have Jalen Buckley, who I think that's actually a little underrated being at 87. I thought he's going to be one of those guys that would be pushing a 90 overall. Very nice running back. Speed, speaking, get a couple guys into the 90s at the skill position spots. I think that's a White Lightning as well. Cole Cabana. That's always a little bit bonus points for the brand. A pretty fun freshman quarterback here as well. Garrison Beasley, 69 freshman with 94 throw power. Get a cupcake roster. Not a great program. Chance to try to become the big team in Michigan. Fun freshman quarterback. A running back that can carry the offense early on. Fun tier. And our final team is Wyoming, back in the Mountain West. I think as far as Mountain West is concerned, probably one of the better rosters, which you will likely have to hold that against them just a little bit. Not a particularly fast roster. I always love the vibes of like making Wyoming a powerhouse, kind of like a weird outlier location to have a team. So you could make them a power. It would be fun because it's unique. Not a lot of people are probably going to be picking Wyoming. Got a pretty fun sophomore quarterback. Underrated one here in Philip Rush. Decent mobility, 82 speed, 83 acceleration. Got the 94 throw power. You know, could you make him? I mean, obviously not, the build's not there, but, you know, if you're a fan of the Bills, can you get another Josh Allen in Wyoming? That's always an interesting storyline you can kind of create for yourself. So almost lazily, I'll also put Wyoming into the fun tier. And the rankings have now been complete. It was a little bit longer video. Actually, I have no idea. I literally clipped this thing up, how long it's going to be. I'm going to probably already apologize for how long it was in comparison to last year's video. But because we have the ratings that I think are going to be pretty much what we're getting at launch, to kind of give you a little bit of background, get a couple players, break down maybe why some of these teams and some of the players that could have these teams in these given positions to justify it, I think it was worth adding into this video. But I'd love to hear what you guys think. Do you agree or disagree with these rankings? Is there anything you're taking from this video? Did you see something in today's video that has helped you decide what team you want to be your first dynasty in college football 26? Please let me know in the comment section below. If there's any team I got right, any team I got wrong, let me know. And that will do it for me here today, guys. Thank you guys very much for watching today's video. I think tomorrow, this is super late, very late for my uploads, but tomorrow we have the Dynasty deep dive. We'll be reacting to that. I'll be elaborating on my experiences from the College Football 26 beta. We'll have another rebuild dropping hopefully the day after that. So thank you guys very much for the love and support on the channel. If it is your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, as College Football 26 season is just getting to rev up. Say it every year, but I'd love for this year, maybe be the year. Mini goals, love to hit that 200,000 subscribers, but if we can kind of take off and pop off here on the channel, I'm going to be doing everything in my power to do so, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys that has been rocking with me for however long, be it if you just got on last year during College Football 25 or you've been here for 10 years. We are keeping on here on the channel,